Welcome to the STEAM Discovery Project. I just want to briefly introduce myself and welcome you all in. My name is Adrienne Przynski. I am the founder and program director for StarTech Global Academy, which is a nonprofit dedicated to STEM diversity. We're the ones bringing you the STEAM Discovery Project today at South Park. I'm from Seattle, born and raised. I graduated from Garfield High School and then joined the Air Force ROTC, where I studied mathematics at the University of Washington. That actually was not a good match for me. I did not like that program. I transferred out and discovered my real passion. I became an entrepreneur, and here we are with our latest project. The STEAM Discovery Project is a series of free workshops for teens to discover STEAM education and career pathways, plus the resources to get you there, including careers, scholarships, tutoring, mentors, and more. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is STEAM? Well, STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. You may have also heard of STEM, STEAM without the arts. Well, when we say arts here, we mean the ways in which technology and STEM are used in the arts. For example, this presentation was made on a digital design app. Part of what we hope you'll find interesting today is the ways in which STEAM is used in many unique careers. So let's get into Zoom etiquette real quick and a little bit about Zoom if you're unfamiliar. If you look in the bottom left corner of your window, you should see a microphone with a line through it. This means you're muted. We'd like everyone to go ahead and stay on mute until the question and answer part, but you're welcome to use the chat feature. This is also an icon on the bottom of your screen. If you click on that icon, a chat box comes up and you can go ahead and say hi in that and let us know that it's working. That would be great. And finally, for your view, at the top right of your window is the view icon. There's a side-by-side speaker view, which will help you see best who's speaking. I have that icon circled there. There's the standard view, which shows presentations and participant cameras on the top. And then finally, the side-by-side gallery view, which shows presentation and participant cameras on the side. Last but not least, a friendly reminder that we are recording the session and translating it into other languages. So community members who aren't here can still get the awesome info. Now, if you know someone who might be interested, but they couldn't attend the workshop today, please just let them know that the recording is posted on steamdiscovery.org. So for those in person, there was free pizza. Hopefully they're enjoying that. Otherwise, for the first 10 participants to sign up and complete the workshop, including the survey at the end, there is a free $25 Amazon gift card that we will be emailing to you. So we need your email. If you've already signed up, then we have your email, so you're good to go. If you haven't, you can put your email in the chat box and we will line it up with your survey later on and send you that Amazon gift card. For those of you who don't win, all participants can pick up swag packs from the South Park location. Finally, the agenda. So on the agenda today is the intro and the Zoom etiquette, which I already went through. And then there is Why STEAM with our workshop lead, and STEAM stories with our special guest speakers, a question and answer panel with our special guest panelists, and then finally a brief exit survey, which helps improve the workshops, finds out if you'd like to be matched with a mentor, and it also helps us get grants to keep the workshops free. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Mila, the workshop lead. You're muted, Mila.
There we go. Hi, my name is Mila Hightower. I am a senior at Xavier University studying biology pre-medicine. I am from Seattle, Washington, born and raised. I went to South Shore K through 8 for most of my pre-high school years, and then I graduated from Cleveland 2016. I actually got involved in STEM by transferring to Cleveland. I had originally transferred there for basketball, and Cleveland is actually a STEM school, so all of their students either have to be in the life sciences track or the engineering and design track. Fortunately, I was put in the life sciences track, and it only took me about a semester or two before I fell in love with it and decided that this is what I wanted to be doing for my career. Now, don't want to go too far. Sorry, my computer's being a little slow. Alrighty, so why STEAM? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of diverse STEAM careers today, and we will explore some of those with you right now. There are also many different pathways to a career in STEAM, excuse me. You can choose the one that fits you best. In the US, STEAM jobs are also growing at a rate twice the rate of non-STEAM jobs. There will be jobs waiting for you in STEAM when you finish your schooling. And also in the US, their average pay for STEAM jobs is twice as much as the average pay for non-STEAM jobs. So let's take a look at some jobs that fall into the STEAM category. Before we do, take a second to think about some jobs that you already know of. One thing to note is that STEAM is very diverse. It's not just scientists and engineers, it's so much more. On the left, you'll see an image with a man and a woman in a biotech lab. Very sciencey. The bottom image is a man and a woman in a mixing studio using DJ mixing equipment. These are both STEAM careers. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of STEAM careers. And today we just wanted to highlight a range of careers to get your wheels turning on what's possible. Now, here are some science-based careers related to health and wellness. You have dentistry, nursing and pharmacy and medicine, lab technicians, counseling and psychology, physical therapy and fitness. And other science pathways include the nature and life sciences. You have ecology and land stewardship, zoology, forestry, environmentalism, or becoming a veterinarian. On the tech and engineering side of things, you have game development, website or app developers, IT systems and security management, DevOps and business operations, or digital marketing. And on the art side of things, you have graphic designing, multimedia artists, digital animation, multimedia and creative directing. And similarly, on the entertainment and audiovisual side of things, director of photography, you can be a videographer, visual effects technician, or an audio engineer. So another great thing about STEAM is that there are multiple pathways to get you into the career that you want. Virtually all careers are going to require a high school diploma or a GED, so that's going to be your first step. At the end of this workshop, we'll connect you with a resource guide that will help you with tutoring, scholarships, and more. And please don't worry about how to pay for your education. There's always scholarships, grants, and student loans to help you cover the cost. So back to education. With 1 to 2 years of education or training after high school, you'll usually end up with a certificate or an associate's degree. 4 years after will get you a bachelor's degree, and 6 to 12 years will get you a master's or a doctoral degree. Now, 12 years might seem like a lot. That time is going to pass anyway. So where do you want to be in 12 years? What do you want to be doing? How do you want to be spending your time? The key is to figure out what you're interested in and what careers there are and start down the path. Okay. Uh-oh. Sorry, my computer's just going so slow all of a sudden. Alrighty. Another awesome thing about STEAM is that the jobs pay pretty well. We like to call it a family wage because you can live on it and support a family. Each of these career fields has a way to get into them with a shorter path, a medium path, or a longer path. Usually the longer paths are going to pay more, but not always. There are some 2-year paths like information security or business operations that will pay as much as the 6 to 12-year pathways, something like $25 to $45 an hour, but it really depends on the specific career. So some key takeaways to take from this workshop. First is that there's so many careers in STEAM, all the way from engineers at Boeing to SpaceX all the way from engineers at Boeing or SpaceX to life sciences or multimedia career artists. Second, you have multiple pathways to each career field. On average, most careers in STEM are going to require 1 to 12 years, but that time is going to pass anyway. So where do you want to be? And lastly, if you put it all together, it's really about finding something you're interested in, choosing that pathway, and letting it lead you to a career in STEAM. It's also important to remember that most jobs are going to have ongoing training and education, so you can always switch pathways or careers and change your mind if you want to. Now, I just wanted to show you briefly the resource guide that I mentioned. We've been creating a guide for each workshop location with a list of local resources, including but not limited to advising, tutoring, scholarships, computer labs, study spaces, free Wi-Fi, food, workshops, and so much more. You can find it via the link at the bottom of the page, startechga.org/guide. And if you ever forget it, you can always just go to steamdiscoveryproject.org and the resource guide links will be there in the menu. Here's a quick little example of what the resource guide looks like. You can click on the location of your choice or whichever one's closest to you, and you to a customized list of support resources curated just for you. Now it is time for our first guest speaker. We have Dr. Jonathan Sinclair, who is an industrial physicist focusing on applications of laser and electro-optics in aerospace and defense. Let's share screen. Dr. Sinclair, take it away.
Well, hello, folks. I hope you can see my screen. I'd like to tell you about my STEAM journey. We'll start by saying who I am, Jonathan Sinclair. I have a list of alphabet soup after my name. Those are degrees that I've earned, and they actually chart my journey and challenges that I've met and overcome. So I'll describe those to you. I'm an industrial physicist. I've been doing research and development for the Boeing Company. I retired after 32 years. I'm married. I have 5 grown, awesome offspring. And the other alphabet soup at the bottom are the number of professional organizations that I participate in. That's my picture on the right. So what did I do? Well, I answered the call at Boeing from production and development organizations for problem solving in production and testing. We pursued and won government contracts to develop novel solutions to technical challenges. In the course of that, I and my team were awarded over 31 patents. And on the right, you see a couple of pictures. One of them is the International Space Station. I got to do some interesting work on that. And in fact, I think I left a handprint on it. They probably washed it off, but I like to think they did. Left it on there for me. Also did work on 787. One of the more awesome projects that we got to do was to try and put something together. That was very similar to the Star Trek tricorder. If you're a fan of Star Trek, you probably know what I'm talking about. But this was supposed to be a handheld device that would be able to make standoff measurements from a distance of the heart rate and respiration of potential victims of any kind of catastrophe. This box right here is what's displayed in the patent. Both of these diagrams are from the patents. And it took a team of engineers, scientists, and technicians to design as a group, to identify, buy, and fabricate the parts, to assemble them, to test it, and deploy a complete system. And an electronics technician generally designed and built our custom power circuits. That's an electronics technician, a 2-year program. Let the heart beat there. Another interesting project which enabled me to win a Black Engineer of the Year award at the conference in 2008. This is a laser-based 3D imaging device, and we went from this prototype concept to this device circled in red. It's mounted on the end of a robot here. And the other application for that is shown in this diagram on the right. These are two fuselage sections from two commercial aircraft. And the idea is to figure out how to put these two together rapidly and precisely. And for this very complicated system, again, electronics and optics technicians participated in assembling our prototypes and in the testing of them. So how did I get here? And it's really about finding a direction. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, right in the center of the country, Midwest. I enjoyed science fiction stories, TV, movies since childhood. I started community college, the first community college, studying business until I flunked an accounting course. And in that same semester, I also aced a math class. And that seemed to resonate with my interest in science fiction. And so I converted to engineering. So in a different community college, I changed my major and I earned a 2-year associate in science and engineering degree. That's my first first degree. The most impactful class was calculus. The entire class was solving problems at the blackboard. And also was thermodynamics, because I found that kind of strange, but also intriguing and interesting. I worked full time. I lived at home with my parents. I love the community college experience. I studied at 3 different community colleges. It was a great experience. Now, how did I find my passion? I found a direction, engineering. What was the passion? So after that associate's degree, I pursued aeronautical and astronautical engineering. I did it because it was a cool name. And of course, I was interested in science fiction. In the course of studying that, I discovered a passion for understanding the origin of those engineering rules. And to do that, I had to convert to engineering physics. So then I changed majors to engineering physics, but I needed more math. So I completed the physics bachelor's degree, and then I also got a bachelor's degree in applied math, which was convenient for me to take time to do that because my beautiful and awesome wife, my new bride, was finishing her degree. I was accepted into the University of Washington for graduate school, the physics department, and started an experimental physics program. I hired students to help in my lab. They were undergraduate students. And that was a great experience. Joined Boeing Research and Development Group right out of grad school. And over the course of my evolution there, I grew an awesome family in Mount Baker and Central District neighborhoods. And my children graduated from Garfield High School. So what challenges did I have to overcome? Well, first I had to work to pay tuition. And one of my jobs, as you can see here, was as a grocery clerk. I stocked shelves and I checked people out. Another challenge was just growing a family, having that responsibility. There was racism we had to deal with, and of course, personal insecurities. My first car accident was after an all-night shift of work and morning finals in one of my early engineering classes. I dinged a car in front of me. That was very unpleasant experience, but got past that. Overall, a couple of math professors seemed to have a harder time with my race. In general, I was the only African-American in all of my classes. And another struggle, challenge I had, I struggled to pass what they call gateway tests through graduate school. One of those is the GRE, Graduate Record Exam. I got into the school at the University of Washington, but they wanted me to take the test and get a certain score. So it took me several attempts, and there were other gateway tests that myself and other grad students had to master in order to move forward. So among those challenges, what were the lessons that I learned? Well, reinforce the support system. The support system is critical. My awesome wife and my family and friends were part of that support structure. Most classmates were very supportive. We worked through problems together. Most professors were supportive as well. And on-campus affinity groups were especially helpful. National Society of Black Engineers, Ethnic Cultural Center at the University of Washington. Had to create some new muscles. And those I describe as a lot of prayer and meditation. And I mean by meditation, transcendental meditation, which is a specific kind. But there are a number of kinds of meditations out there today that are productive and helpful. Also, another muscle was coming up with self-talk to overcome self-doubt, insecurity, and to cancel rampant, unproductive self-criticism. I learned to do speed reading, and I figured out I needed to be fanatical about completing the homework. It turned out that I needed to immerse myself in the subject, and some of the tricks, some of the habits I had to develop can be captured in the saying, I see it, I hear it, I say it, and I write it. And by the time I do that, it sticks pretty well. And a key muscle to have is to persevere. Just keep at it. So that's mostly my story. What's next for me is to keep dreaming. I want to help develop tech standards. That's part of one of the organizations I'm participating in. I want to invent something useful, study interesting physics, help foster and support African Americans in STEAM enterprises, for example, R21, STGA, this type of activity, saving the planet. Want to keep dreaming. But I do have some takeaway messages for you that I want you to kind of remember. One of them is consider all the different types of STEAM jobs. As Milo showed you, you will hear from other speakers, there's lots of them. And you don't have to go all the way for 12 years to have a rewarding and interesting and satisfying career. You should consider starting in community college. It's a great learning experience, it's second to none. It was a great start for my STEAM career. And it turns out there's a world-class community colleges in Puget Sound. A few years ago, Seattle Central Community College was rated #1 in the nation. And finally, dream good dreams. Work hard and be brave. That means you get to try and fail and learn and grow and then repeat that process. And don't dwell on the negative. Find your passion. You should expect success and persevere. And good luck, and be happy to interact with you, answer any questions you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. We have next Bianca Haro, who is a protein scientist and conjugation chemist.
Hello, let me share my screen. Okay. So a little bit about my educational background is I also went to community college like Dr. Sinclair. I just didn't mention it in this slide. But I went to community college. From there, I transferred into University of Washington, not really knowing what I wanted to study. And I asked my advisor at UW what she majored in, and she said microbiology. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm majoring in microbiology too. So I majored in microbiology. While I was going to UW, I lived in Lake Bay, which is past Gig Harbor. And at the time I didn't own a car. So I was commuting roughly around 4 hours every single day to school and back. I also had to work part-time so that I wouldn't have to take out as many loans. So I ended up not doing too well. I graduated with a GPA of 2.9. To improve my chances of being able to work towards a PhD, I went and got my master's degree while working at CGen in clinical and translational research, where I recently graduated last week with a 3.95. So I'm very happy that I was able to turn that around. And in this slide, I just wanted to show kind of to go over microbiology, which is basically studying anything that isn't visible to the eye. So bacteria or viruses. I didn't really do much with my degree. So that kind of speaks or touches on the fact that you could study, physics or mathematics or microbiology, but you could not necessarily end up in a role that will be directly applicable to what you studied. So even though I majored in microbiology, I didn't really use a lot of the knowledge or techniques that I learned in my undergrad in my job. And then going into clinical and translational research, I was more focused on the second part of the major, which is translational research. And in the image below, it kind of goes over the different types of translational research, where my main focus right now is in the T0, which is using basic science research and using that basic knowledge, being able to translate that from bench to bedside or from bench to preclinical studies in animals. So just a high-level overview of what I do now at CGen, which is conjugation chemistry. And just to go over some of the main terms that I'll cover throughout the slide. So at CGen, we produce something called antibody drug conjugates. So we're taking the specificity of an antibody and we're combining it with a drug linker, which we like to call a payload or a cytotoxic payload. And we're using this linker, which can be cleavable or non-cleavable, to combine those together. So by using the specificity of the antibody, we can target just cancer cells that are producing these antigens or expressing these antigens at a higher level than healthy cells. So in chemotherapy, we see a lot of people suffer very difficult side effects from chemotherapy, like hair loss or becoming very sick in general. And what the hope is that eventually we'll be able to specifically target just cancer cells. That way the negative effects of undergoing cancer treatment won't be as extensive. So the general mechanism of action of these ADCs that we generate at CGen is that it will recognize cancer cells and it will bind, and then the cancer cell will engulf that ADC, and then it'll degrade it. And depending on the type of linker, it can be cleaved before or after it enters into the cancer cell. And then again, dependent on the linker, it could disrupt different mechanisms of action that the cell has to duplicate or replicate, and this leads to cell death. So currently in my role, I create these antibody drug conjugates for different phases of early drug discovery. So we have target discovery, target validation, lead generation and refinement, and preclinical development. So I will have different groups from within research request that these antibody drug conjugates be made with varying antibodies and varying drug linkers, and it'll help them kind of discover what their lead is, which is what antibody and what drug linker combination will lead to the most effective method of killing these cancer cells. And something really, I think something that's super interesting is sometimes I'll be able to create antibody drug conjugates for cyno studies. So those ADCs that I create will be injected into monkeys essentially, and we'll be able to kind of get a better idea of how it will work when we move up to humans. So some of the methods that I use, the most common methods in my lab, is using either the lysines residues in an antibody that naturally exists, or reducing the disulfide bridges that exist in an antibody. So either method leads to a conjugated ADC, but there are differences in what we call drug to antibody ratio distribution. So the Gaussian distribution can differ based on the conjugation method that I elect to choose. And the way that I like to think about it, and something that we have in our homepage for ADC requests, is kind of thinking of it like, I'm pretty sure most of you are a little too young to know this show, but I grew up watching Pimp My Ride, where they take this really crappy car and they just, you know, put all these brand new things, and they'll put TV screens in it and lights, and it's amazing. Get a whole brand new different car. And that's kind of what I do in my group. So I take this boring antibody that doesn't really have that much efficacy when it comes to treating cancer by itself, and I will add these big old tires and lift it off the ground and paint flames on it and dye it red. And now it'll have more efficacy to kill those cancer cells. And then these are just the different types of conjugates that I could create. So as I mentioned before, antibody drug conjugates, you know, we're more interested in killing cancer cells. And another type of conjugates that I'm creating in the lab are called immunostimulatory drug conjugates, which focus more on stimulating the immune system to recognize those cancer cells. So turning what we call a cold tumor into a hot tumor. And then I also just make bioconjugates, which are essentially just an antibody with most likely an alexiphore. So something that just creates a certain wavelength or a color, or turns a different color so that it can be easily recognized. And we use that sometimes to determine how much is being absorbed and where it's being absorbed in the body. And I just wanted to finish off by just saying that, you know, if my discussion of what I do seems, you know, a little bit too hard or not that interesting, there are so many different opportunities in biotech that you could work in. It isn't just completely science driven. There are people in IT, there are people in manufacturing, there's a business side, there's a sales side. There's project management as well. So there are so many opportunities in biotech. And it doesn't necessarily matter what school you go to or what you major in. It just matters if you're interested, if you're driven, if you're passionate, and you're willing to learn to get a job in biotech. So I think one thing I really want to say is that I would show some confidence when I see those job postings, because you never know. And that's it.
Thank you, Bianca. Okay, let me take back over here. Share screen. Okay, so it is now time for our Q&A panel. Everybody can see my screen okay? Perfect. So we will now transition to our Q&A, question and answer period. If you have any questions, you can physically raise your hand, and we're watching the cameras so we can see you guys, or you can type questions in the chat, we'll call on you, or you can just put your full question into the chat box. For our panelists, we have our guest speakers who you're already a bit familiar with, Dr. Jonathan Sinclair, industrial physicist with focus on applications of lasers and electro-optics in aerospace and defense, Bianca Haro, who works with protein sciences and conjugation chemistry. And additionally, we have Bobby Przinski, who works in biopharmaceutical manufacturing, Maurice Lewis, a technical program and product manager, and Caitlin Sylvester, who is an offshore marine scientist. So I'll give you guys a minute or so to think of some questions. And then if we're feeling a little stuck, I can get us started. So I'll just give you a minute. Pull up this chat box here. And while you guys are maybe thinking of some questions, I would actually love to start off with asking everyone, we've got about 10 minutes FYI for our questions, but how many hours a week do you guys usually spend on the job? I mean, when you were working or if you're still working, about how many hours a week do you guys usually spend working? Can we start with Bianca? I think you're muted. Let's see.
There we go. Yeah, so I typically spend, depending on the day, about 8 hours every single day throughout the week. I'm lucky that most of my projects I can take my time on. There are some projects that I get that are have a really high sense of urgency. So like the Sino studies that I get, they kind of have a really tight timeline. So sometimes I'll have to work overtime during the weekend, but so far it's been a reasonable role in terms of time dedication.
Gotcha. 8 hours or so. That's not bad. How about Caitlin?
Sure. So I usually work about 36 hours a week. So yeah, it used to be 32 and I just bumped it up to 36. It usually ends up being about a half day on Fridays. So Monday through Thursday, half day on Friday.
Nice. Bobby?
It depends. Typically, it's around 40 to 45 hours a week. But things can get really busy in manufacturing depending on how many processes we have going on at once. And the most I would say is about 55 to 60 hours a week. And it's all overtime, it's not salary. So that is nice.
I bet. Maurice, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about what you do and telling us about what you wish you would have known when you graduated from high school.
Yeah, I am a technical program product manager. So basically, I'm the glue to the puzzle, making sure that all the stakeholders are project members on my team or are adhering to the project guidelines and turning things in on time. What I wish I would have knew out of high school. I wish I would have knew the job demand in the tech field was going to boom like it did at the time. I got out of school in 2001. I mean, I think the biggest company may have been like Microsoft at the time. And by the time I got out of college, that's when Amazon really started like becoming very popular. And obviously Amazon took over Seattle. So I wish I would have knew that at the time, but clearly I couldn't tell. And so that kind of like steered me down the path back to the technical field. So because of the job market.
All right, we had a youth here that had a question for Maurice. I'm not a youth, but I was going to ask a question. What's the average IQ of a STEM scientist or a technical program product manager?
What was that?
What do you guys usually like? Oh, what is for the technical program / product manager, when you product manage, is that like you manage your own product and you try to manage and make your own business and build up to it?
No, it may like mean like a specific product within a company that I'm managing. Like for instance, I worked on the Surface marketing team at Microsoft. So during that time, I was managing more specific like Surface products like laptops, the mouse, the pens, any of the products that fell under the Surface team. And as far as program, it's more like on the business operations side where you're managing a whole program in general, making sure like there may be several different tiers on the umbrella, and you're making sure all those tiers of the business are streamlining and so they're just like in line with each other and make sure everything's running smoothly. So yeah, product management is more specific on a certain product or thing.
Great question.
About the product managing. When you manage your own product, does that mean you manage and make your own system and try to work it out like your own products and stuff, like your own line of business products?
Yeah,
You're
something like
producing
that.
that stuff.
Yeah, who's that? Makursa?
The thing is, so when you do this stuff, you have to take Mensa IQ test. Or do you have to go to college for this?
Yes. Undergrad, I got a bachelor's in psychology and I ended up getting an MBA. And certain schools may have a specific track to obtain a project management degree. But if you just at least got like a general MBA degree, you could probably fall into becoming a project manager. So it all depends on your skill set. So I'm good at juggling things and managing people. So that's how I kind of fell into the industry. So as a program and product manager, you're gonna be dealing with a lot of people and making sure everybody's on the same page.
So, yeah, that's nice. So with your computer, does that have to be like a specific type of computer to work, or can it be any computer? Like,
It
does
could
that have to
be-
be desktop, laptop, or what?
Yeah, it could be any computer.
Monitor.
Yeah.
And does it have to have like certain updates and stuff? Like you have to download certain apps to do the manufacturer working?
No, it depends on the company. Whatever company you're working for, they'll make sure you have the certain capabilities to complete the job. So.
Yep. How many years does it usually take to become a producer and manufacturer?
The producer and manufacturer, I'm not sure about that.
No. The job that you were just in, I forgot what the job was called. Project manager.
Yeah.
It's called project manager.
I mean, generally most people have a undergrad degree, so 4 years of college. But I took a longer route and obtained my MBA, so 6 years.
Oh, nice. How many years have you been working with this program?
It's been about 5 years now.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like work your way up to the status, or yeah, you have to like work your way up to become a product manager.
You necessarily don't have to, but the way it generally works, like most people become a project manager first, and then become a program manager, and then become a product manager, because there's different levels.
And so what colleges do they typically graduate from, or what colleges do you have to enter? Like what kind of college?
It doesn't really matter. Like I've worked with people who have a degree in music, and they became program managers because they're good with dealing with people and adhering to project timelines. So yeah, you necessarily don't have to worry about the college. So as long as you know what you're doing, that's all that matters.
So when you make for a specific bring the item so they can distribute.
I'm sorry, I couldn't, can you hear, the signal kind of went out.
So we do sometimes give it to bigger for the distribute the item.
I kind of quite didn't hear the question. It may be my internet
Type it into the
connection.
chat, maybe. I think we
Yeah,
have enough time for
that's
maybe one or two more questions, FYI. Thank you for your questions, by the way.
Yeah, I do actually do have a question. Have any of you guys ever dealt with imposter syndrome? If so, how do you guys deal with it?
Great question. Who wants to go first?
Okay, this is Jonathan. Imposter syndrome. If I assume that you mean that you don't feel like you have you deserve whatever responsibility you're given, if that's what you mean by imposter syndrome. So I think the right answer to that is that you've done your best, you've studied hard, you've worked hard, and you've learned what you needed to learn, and you've been given the task. So even if you don't feel up to it, or even if you feel that you're inadequate to the task, it's an opportunity for you to overcome, to identify what you need to know and do, and then to generate the courage and the energy to go do it. And in general, there can be people who are looking at you and wondering if, are you really up to the task? And you may make a mistake, and that may make your anxiety worse. So the bottom line, from my point of view, is that life is a learning process. And I found people, including myself, to be able to teach myself new skills and new things. And that enables me to address the issue. Also, I have to be confident enough to ask for help. If there's something I don't understand and I need help understanding it, go to somebody who understands it better and ask them to teach you. You're not expected to know everything. No one knows everything. And you're not expected to be perfect. No one is perfect. So it's all the process of doing the best we can, putting our hearts and minds into it. And in general, it's a team activity, and team activity gives you success, working together. So that's my long answer to that.
Okay, it's about time to wrap it up for the survey then. Great questions.
Thank you guys for your questions and excellent answers as well. Thank you guys for taking the time to answer those questions so well. Last thing up on the list. Oh, before we do the survey though, I did want to mention, if you're interested in a mentor, let us know in the survey and we'll match you up with someone and we'll have them reach out to you via email soon. So for our exit survey, I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat box for you guys. It only takes about 5 minutes or so. And once you're done with the survey, you can go ahead and exit the meeting. Thank you guys so much for coming. And don't forget to check out steamdiscoveryproject.org for all those extra resources that we mentioned earlier in the workshop.